Carlos Lehder, Colombia's most dangerous drug barons. Netflix series Narcos has made Pablo Escobar a known name around the world. But did you know about Carlos Lehder, Escobar's right-hand man? What happened between the two of them that led Escobar to issue an open letter in which he categorically denied any role in his business partner's arrest? What led to such a public dismissal of his partner? Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates about our videos. In today's video, we'll talk about the one and only Carlos Lehder. Who was he? What was his job? And what led to him becoming one of Colombia's most dangerous drug barons? If you want to know more, keep watching. So let's begin. Most narcotraficantes or drug traffickers face one of two outcomes: death, as Pablo Escobar did at the hands of the US and Colombian special agents during an operation in Medellin in 1993, or incarceration in the United States, like Carlos Lehder did. At the time, Lehder's 1988 trial was the most prominent court case in US history against a foreign drug importer. The court sentenced Lehder to life in jail without the possibility of release. It imposed another 134 years for allegedly dumping 2,000 kgs, that's 4,409 pounds of cocaine, on US streets for good measure. Despite the seriousness of these allegations against him, prosecutors frequently praised his abilities, comparing his smuggling system to Henry Ford's computerized production line. Carlos Lehder, a 70-year-old Colombian-German national, rose to prominence for establishing a drug smuggling hub on a private island in the Bahamas. He was apprehended in Colombia in 1987 and extradited to the United States, where he was sentenced to life in prison plus 135 years. This was decreased after he decided to work with authorities. Monica Lehder, Lehder's daughter, informed Colombian magazine Semana that her father had been diagnosed with cancer and would be cared for by the German charity because he had no relations in the nation. The background of Carlos Lehder. With the cooperation of corrupt local officials, Lehder established a transit point for drug-laden aircraft on the island of Norman's Cay, 210 miles, that's 330 kilometers off the coast of Florida. Colombian officials apprehended Lehder at a farm, apparently on a tip from Escobar, and extradited him to the United States, which was then spearheaded a campaign against drug traffickers based in Colombia. His sentence was lowered after he testified against former Panamanian President Manuel Noriega, who had close ties with the Medellin gang and permitted it to export cocaine through Panama. After that, Lehder was placed in a witness protection program in Florida. Lehder obtained German citizenship through his father, a Colombian immigrant. According to German broadcaster DW, he has never visited Germany. He will face no legal actions from the country's authorities because he has already served his prison sentence in the United States. His lawyer, Oscar Arroyave, told the Associated Press that Lehder had no desire to return to Colombia and that German officials assisted him in relocating to Berlin. Lehder arrived in Frankfurt on a routine passenger flight from New York, according to his daughter. "I haven't seen him in almost 17 years. I'm relieved and at ease knowing that despite his condition, he's doing well," she explained to Semana in Spanish. According to Spiegel Online, he was taken by 2 US officials and handed up to German officials. It's estimated that the Medellin cartel provided an estimated 80% of the cocaine trafficked into the US in the 1970s and 1980s. Escobar, whose collaboration with Lehder was depicted in the hit Netflix series Narcos, was killed in a shootout with police in Medellin in 1993, while attempting to avoid extradition to the United States. A look into his past. Pablo Escobar's former right-hand guy has been deported to Germany from the US prison. A Colombian-German national revolutionized cocaine smuggling, and his story is more amazing than any melodrama. The capture of the drug lord and his 14 bodyguards was a significant victory. The 37-year-old babyface Lehder is the boss of the Medellin cartel. A strong crime syndicate claimed to supply 80% of the world's cocaine. The organization allegedly earned billions of dollars each year by smuggling up to 15 tons of cocaine into the US and Europe every month. Recognizing that underlings would attempt to rescue their rich master, US and Colombian officials rushed to draw papers to extradite Lehder to the US. He was on his way to Florida before the sun went down, where he would stand trial on allegations of narcotics, smuggling, and running a criminal operation, which would land him in prison for life. As satisfactory as Lehder's capture was for both the Bogota administration and the US Drug Enforcement Administration, it did not put a stop to the Medellin operations. Lehder was merely one of the cartel's half-dozen barons, and it was possible that he was set up by one of his compatriots who thought the pompous Lehder was too power-hungry. "We cannot say that this arrest has dealt us a devastating blow," admitted DEA Administrator Jack Lawn. "Its significance stems from the point that the Colombian government, despite all of its defeats, has announced its intent. Bogota's attempt against Lehder was fraught with danger. Colombia's on-again, off-again drug war has taken the lives of hundreds of judges, police officers, and journalists in recent years. When Virgilio Barco Vargas was sworn in as president, the battle was slowed dramatically. Some believe that Barco was more concerned with his country's economic problems in the early months of his presidency and did not place a strong priority on the drug war. However, eventually the president had stepped up his game when the Colombian Supreme Court used a technicality to invalidate a continuous extradition treaty with the United States aimed at drug traffickers. Barco promptly reactivated it. A renowned newspaperman who had been publicly critical of drug dealers was assassinated in Bogota a few days later. Barco launched a massive operation against the drug lords known as La Mafia. Police increased the number of raids, arrests, and narcotic seizures. Since then, Barco has issued several decrees that simply authorize to pursue drug leaders. A timeline of charges put on Carlos Lehder. Prosecutors said Lehder, 37, was one of the world's most dangerous cocaine traffickers, with the Medellin cartel responsible for 80% of the cocaine transported into the United States before his capture February 4th in Colombia during a shootout. Merkel described him as the personal incarceration of a narco-terrorist who has admitted to unprecedented savagery. Lehder was scheduled to stand trial on September 8th on allegations of conspiring to assist in shipping approximately 3.3 tons of cocaine into the United States from Colombia. In an 11-count federal indictment filed in Jacksonville, he was accused of conspiracy to import cocaine, distribution of cocaine, and maintaining a continuous criminal operation. If convicted, he faced a maximum life sentence in prison plus 165 years. In a second federal indictment handed out in Miami, Lehder is accused of being a commander of the Medellin cartel. At today's hearing, Atlanta jail warden Joe Petrovsky testified regarding the prisoner's living conditions, which Lehder's lawyers had described as inhumane. He said a bed and a locker are standard in Lehder's cell. A table and a chair have been added, and Lehder had access to law books, magazines, and other reading material, according to Petrovsky. Attorneys for Lehder had asked U.S. Magistrate Harvey E. Schlesinger to transfer him to Miami's Metropolitan Correctional Center to assist them in preparing for his trial. According to the motion, Lehder's solitary incarceration was cruel and unusual punishment and has denied him a reasonable opportunity to speak with his attorneys. His capture. The drug lords delivered a terrifying counterpunch on January 13th. Colombia's ambassador to Hungary, Enrique Parejo Gonzalez, had just come out of his home in Budapest when a guy approached and fired 4 gunshots into his head and torso. It was a wonder that Parejo lived, but it was no surprise that he was hunted. He had spearheaded Colombia's drug fight as Minister for Justice from 1984 to 1986. During this time, he was consistently threatened with death. Parejo foolishly believed he was safe behind the security-tight Iron Curtain. Following that, Colombia's Attorney General Mauro Hoyos issued a warning saying, "No one is secure anywhere from the vengeance of La Mafia." The arrest of Lehder enhanced the morale of Colombia's drug lords. Even in the ruthless drug underworld, the small, cocky Lehder never failed to distinguish themselves as an especially nasty guy. He likes attractive ladies, drugs, and brutality, and he admires Adolf Hitler. El Loco is a derogatory term used in mafia circles to describe him, the nut. Lehder's capture has a powerful emblem in a conflict where losses are expected and successes are primarily symbolic. And this brings us to the end of the video. Like, share, and subscribe, and press the bell notification to get all the latest updates on our channel. What do you think of today's video? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.